Movie begins by introducing the main character, Brad, who is a pilot. He walks through the airport while on a video call with his daughter, assuring her that he will finish his work and see her soon. Brad then meets his colleague in the pilot's cabin, and they engage in conversation. However, Brad is soon called out by an officer who informs him of an emergency. He is tasked with taking a powerful individual named Tony on board. Brad accepts this responsibility due to his sensibility. After meeting the rest of the crew and ensuring that all the passengers have boarded, the plane takes off. Brad expresses his love for his daughter and tells his colleague that they only have each other. As they fly through the night, the weather suddenly worsens and Brad becomes worried. He instructs all the passengers to fasten their seatbelts and tries to contact the control center, but the radio fails. Suddenly, the plane is hit by a sharp shock of electricity, and Brad becomes more concerned. He checks on the passengers and is relieved to find that they are unharmed. As the situation becomes more difficult, Brad and his colleague work together to keep the plane flying. With the radio still not functioning and no visibility on the screen, they decide to bring the plane down to avoid further damage. The passengers are scared, and one woman even opens her seatbelt. In the end, the plane crashes hard from the top, leaving all the passengers in a bad state. Brad and his companion swiftly take control of the plane. The air hostess informs Brad that the passengers are in a bad state, so he asks her to manage everyone and asks them to sit on their seats because they are going to land at a nearby airport. As they fly over an island, they realize that they must land on this island as there are no other options. They locate a suitable landing spot and safely land the plane despite the emergency landing. Brad and his companion are relieved to discover that some electricity is still available on the plane. Brad instructs everyone to disembark from the plane. The owner of the plane company, who has been unable to reach the plane due to a damaged radio, becomes worried when he realizes that the plane has vanished from his radar. The air hostess tells Brad that the officer who brought Tony has died, causing him to feel sad. However, he asks her to take care of the remaining passengers. Brad explains to the passengers that they had to land on the island due to an emergency. He reassures them that they will receive food, water, and a place to stay while they wait to leave the island. A rescue expert arrives, and the company's manager provides him with all the necessary information about the plane and its passengers. Brad and his companion begin to work on the plane, but they realize that the electricity is running low and the radio is not working. Brad's companion examines the map and reveals that they are on a private island that is controlled by a private army. Brad realizes that they must contact their rescue team to come and save them, as the army could pose a threat to their safety. Brad informs the passengers that they must find the radio on the other side of the island to contact their rescue team. He decides to take Tony with him, and they set out into the jungle. The head of the private army becomes aware of the plane's arrival and prepares for a potential attack. Tony asked Brad, "Why did you set me free? And where are you taking me now?" Brad replied, "I had to set you free because you were in danger. I can't put everyone in danger because of you. We have to face a dangerous private army, and I need your help." Tony had many questions for Brad, but suddenly he became quiet. When Brad turned around, Tony was gone. Meanwhile, the rescue expert was gathering information about the stranded plane. He saw a video of Brad fighting with a passenger, and he was impressed with Brad's skills. The rescue expert then contacted the leader of a private company to be ready for potential assistance. Brad went to an empty factory in the jungle and found a closed radio machine. He fixed it and tried to contact the helpline to inform them about their situation, but there was a problem with the line. He then asked his daughter to write down the details and inform his office. As Brad was attacked by a man, he fought back and made the attacker unconscious. He then heard someone entering the room and hid, but it was Tony. Tony had taken the weapons for the goons he had killed and gave them to Brad. Together, they started heading towards the passengers and discovered that a dangerous private army kidnaps people for money. When they arrived at the passengers' location, they heard the sound of a car, but it was the dangerous private army. The army leader asked for the list of passengers and the whereabouts of Brad. The air hostess quickly provided the list, but Brad was not present. The private army put the passengers on a bus and planned to take them as prisoners. Brad was angry with Tony for not letting him go, but Tony explained that they were dealing with a dangerous army that Brad could not fight alone. Brad and Tony caught two goons and interrogated them about the passengers' whereabouts. They found out that the passengers were taken to an empty factory. The rescue expert informed the owner of the plane company about the situation and sent a private rescue team to help. The group quickly located the island and their crashed plane. They agreed that the leader of the private team would go ahead with his team to investigate. Meanwhile, Brad and Tony drove towards the factory and sneaked inside. There, they discovered that the goons were filming the passengers to determine their nationalities. Eventually, the private team arrived at the plane, only to find it empty. Upon investigating the plane, the team leader found 2 dead bodies and a message left by Brad indicating the location of the factory. Brad and Tony were already in the factory, hiding and keeping a close eye on the goons. They managed to sneak up on 2 of the guards and silence them before heading towards a secret door. They opened it to find the passengers being held captive by a group of heavily armed guards. Tony, angered by the situation, grabbed a hammer and killed the guards one by one. Brad managed to obtain the keys from one of the goons and freed the passengers. He then instructed them to hurry to the plane as he had called for help through the radio. The rescue team was on their way, but Tony informed Brad that there were still a lot of goons outside, making it impossible to leave. Brad came up with a plan, deciding to distract the goons while Tony led the passengers to safety. He confronted the goons' leader and attempted to negotiate, but they attacked him instead. However, the private team arrived just in time and engaged the goons in a fierce gunfight. Many goons were killed, and Brad and the passengers managed to escape in a bus. Brad soon learned that the private team was not a rescue team, but rather a small group of mercenaries. Brad shared his plan to fly the plane to safety with the team leader, and they quickly got to work fixing it. However, the goons launched another attack, but the private team was well equipped and fought back. Brad managed to take off in the plane with the help of his companion pilot, and thanked Tony for his unwavering support. As they flew away, they discovered a bag of money among the private team's possessions. Currently, Tony decides to leave behind the money and engage in a fight with the goons. He grabs a gun from one of the bags while Brad turns the plane around. The private team starts to climb the plane as Brad is informed by the owner of the plane company that he knows of a safe place where they can go. All of the passengers board the plane except for Tony, who runs away with a bag full of money. The private army attacks Tony's plane as he tries to escape. The head of the army attempts to use a rocket launcher to take down the plane, but Tony sees him and shoots him down. Brad successfully pilots the plane away from the island towards the airport that the owner of the plane company recommended. However, the plane starts to malfunction once again, causing Brad to make an emergency landing in the... Everyone on board survives, and they are all grateful for their lives being saved. The owner of the plane company and his team are happy, as are Brad and his companion. A rescue team arrives shortly after and takes all the passengers with them. Brad speaks with his daughter, who is relieved to hear that he is safe. Both daughters are thrilled to talk to their father. Brad's brave story comes to a close.